All right, welcome back to another quick review. Not quite a quick review this time, but still a quick review. Um, I'm yet again outside, as usual. What's new? And today we are talking about Superman again. Now, in the last quick review I did, which was Superman, I said that when I went and saw the movie again this week, because I already had booked another set of tickets after the early access screening. I would, talk about it again in spoilers. So, this is now the spoiler talk for Superman. After I've seen the movie twice, after I've had a bit of time to digest everything and gather my feelings about it. So, like I said, this won't be quite a quick review because it'll be a little bit longer, but we should still be moving relatively quickly. And and also click off because we're going to be talking about spoilers. So yeah, first thing, just like overall thoughts on the movie just as a whole. It's still great. It's still amazing to me. I still love it. I gave it a 10 out of 10 when I first watched it. And on a rewatch, it was even better. I gave it another 10 out of 10. It's a movie that, even on rewatch, even after seeing everything for the first time, it still had me smiling throughout the entirety of the movie. Had me, giddy with joy and laughter. It was the Superman movie that I wanted. Like the Batman a couple of years ago when it came out. I was like, I was relatively younger, obviously. I was like maybe 15 going on 16 when the Batman came out. And so I was like, okay, I grew up with, I read Batman comics growing up, watched a whole bunch of TV shows. I grew up with Batman being a detective, And, as much as not love, but I do really enjoy the Dark Knight trilogy. I wanted like a detective Batman story that's like relatively traditional, And that's what I got. Much like the Batman, this is the Superman movie or at least the modern Superman movie that I've always wanted. Because obviously we've seen stuff like this with the Christopher Reeve version. But now where we have a Superman movie that is fun and positive and hopeful and silly at times, mixed with, Man of Steel being modern. It's like a mix of those two. Like a modern Christopher Reeve Superman done right, not like Superman Returns, right? But yeah, let's actually get into the nitty gritty. I really love that how it's not afraid to lean into the more silly, ridiculous comic booky elements because a lot of that is what makes comic books really stand out. You know, I think a very good example of this is Baby Joey. Just Baby Joey just being there, right? Just as an entity existing, and everything with pocket universes and how they get out of that with Mr. Terrific and Metamorpho, Baby Joey, and the Raptors and whatnot, or even you go to the kaiju, just a kaiju. I mean, you don't have to say much more than that. Or even, I think another really good example is when Superman and Lois are talking after Lex Luthor has has like made him out to be evil, which we'll talk about later, has made him out to be evil, right? And they're just talking as it, like in the back, while in the background the Justice Gang are fighting this massive alien or whatnot, and they're just talking as if like this is just normal, and it's a very emotional and really heartfelt conversation. But it's also a scene that'll make you laugh because it's like, yeah, there's just this alien in the background. Well, we'll talk about our feelings. It's such commonplace, and I love that. I love that about the movie, that that this stuff just happens, right? It's a commonplace thing, and I think that also really sets up the world of the DCU really well. That things just happen. Like especially with the beginning of the 3 decades and 3 years and whatnot. How it just sets up that it sets up projects for the past and projects set in the past and projects set in the future really well. Ignore the thing in the background. It sets up for that stuff really well and allows us to explore certain time periods, but also it allows us to for some characters who've had their origin stories told so many times, we get to skip that. We get to just hop right into the action. Like, it's not like Iron Man where he's like the first superhero, or Captain America where they're like the first superhero. They are, I'm gonna walk this way. They're live. This is a living, breathing world that this takes place in. I love that. All of the performances are still absolutely phenomenal. There's like four that stand out to me. That is David Corenswet. He is Superman. There's nothing to say about that. He just embodies everything about Superman. And it's perfect. It's definitive. It's perfect casting. I don't know how to explain it. Same thing with Lois Lane, Rachel Brosnahan. She is phenomenal. She brings not new things, but like she refines elements of comic book Lois that have always needed to be translated well into live action. I think a good example is Lois has kind of always been like a side character where they don't really focus much on her, where in this, like in the comics, they actually focus on Lois. She's actually like a main point in this movie, unlike you get to like Man of Steel, where she's like just or even the original Superman movie in a sense, where she's just very much a side character, right? Nicholas Hoult is Lex Luthor. I don't need to say this because the entire internet has been talking about it, but he's amazing. He's phenomenal. His hatred for Superman is just it's amazing. Between all the monkeys typing hate comments about him, which that payoff for that one joke is amazing to me. And then and what else? Just the entire fight between Ultraman and Superman, and how Lex has just all these moves in his head, like just because of how much he hates Superman. He's memorized that. I think that is phenomenal. And then I think if we're going to it's just the fact that he cries at the end because of his hatred, and that monologue that he gives before shouting 1A all the time is just amazing. And then the last person I want to talk about, because everybody has a really good performance, everybody does. But the last person I really want to talk about is Mr. Terrific, Eddie Gathegi, phenomenal in the role, scene stealer. His lines are phenomenal, especially the one that he had in LexCorp while Superman and Lex are talking. Just amazing, phenomenal. The CGI and just the action in general were really good. I think what makes things look weird, it's not the CGI, because they had a lot of time to do all that. It's more so how the movie is shot, how this movie is shot on wide angle lenses, right? How especially during the flight scenes. And I think James Gunn has perfectly mastered those flight scenes. And you also have to remember that David Corenswet, that's not CG, that's him flying, that's him actually on wires and whatnot. I think it's really cool. But everything looks great. Crypto, especially, it feels like they put all the budget into Crypto, but he just looks amazing. Crypto looks phenomenal. And yeah, just everything. It's a really good, pretty looking movie that I love. I'm obsessed with the music. I love the music. David Fleming and John Murphy killed it. I love how it incorporates John Williams' iconic theme, probably the most iconic theme in media. And also makes it its own thing. I think I've said this in my last review. Last Sun specifically is peak Superman music. I don't know how to explain it otherwise, right? I already talked about how this is not an origin story. The world feels alive. One thing that I do want to bring up, there's actually just two things I want to bring up. We go back to the 3 months, the 3 days, 3 years, 3 weeks, 3 minutes ago, whatnot. One person pointed this out on Twitter, and I love that because I love this. It's the fact that in that opening sequence they leave out 3 months. That's because they explain that in the movie. That's 3 months ago, Lois and Clark started seeing each other. I think that it's just a really nice thing to just put in the movie. If you notice it, you notice it. If you don't, you don't. But if you do, it's just really nice. And then Superman's parents. I want to talk about this. I've seen a lot of people um, get on the movie's case for this, and I understand it's a really weird change to make, but I don't hate it, you know. I don't hate the fact that that James Gunn took a creative risk with changing that portion of his origin story, right? I don't hate it at all. I think it works for the movie. Now, I long term, I am curious to see if there's any more to it. Like, if it's been like, I had a friend bring up, like, maybe it's been corrupted. That thing was corrupted like by like Brainiac or something. I don't know, but I am interested to see how they bring that, how they use that in the future. But I think it also does a really good job at expressing, even if his parents aren't, the people he thought he was, he as a person still just wants to do good regardless. The fact that his mind went there to begin with is just a good thing. His mind went to help everybody out, help the people of Earth. It's just amazing. I do think in that aspect it actually works for the character, but I do understand why people would be dissatisfied with that change. It works for some, doesn't work for others. I think it personally works for me just because it exemplifies the qualities that make Superman, as well as being a human. I had a friend who went into this movie. This is the last thing I want to talk about. I had a friend who went into this movie, not a big Superman fan. We've had plenty of arguments about Superman just as a character. And he came out of this movie loving it. He was like, and he echoed the same sentence I did, where it's like, Superman can have all these powers in the world and whatnot, but at the end of the day, he's still human, right? That idea of being human, the idea that I have all these powers in the world, but I'm still like, for the most part, I'm still like you all. I still have these emotions that I go through. I wake up every morning and I don't know what to do on a daily basis, and that's what makes him relatable, because despite all of this, he chooses to, do good. That's why he inspires me. He chooses to do good. He can just do it better. I think that inspires everybody else to, do good, treat everybody with kindness. And I think that's the one thing that I would take away from this movie above all else. Treat everybody else with kindness. Just because it's just the right thing to do, And the world that we live in now, where things in the United States are just so messed up, treat everybody with kindness, and everything will be all right. But yeah, I still love this movie. 10 out of 10 for me. It's still a top 5 comic book movie for me, just because of everything that I loved. I wanted out of as a Superman fan. It's everything that I wanted, and I cannot wait to see what happens. Obviously, like I said, this is a spoiler review. Obviously, we saw Peacemaker in the movie, as well as Supergirl and whatnot. So I'm excited to see where those go. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is one of my all-time favorite comic books. So I'm really excited for that. People get on Supergirl for being drunk. I'm like, y'all haven't read that book, because it makes a lot of sense. I'm excited for them. Excited for Peacemaker Season 2 to see where this world goes with, Lord Tech being involved and whatnot. As well as Lanterns, Guy Gardner's going to be in that, and whatever potential spin-offs or movies that we get out of this, maybe a Jimmy Olsen or Mr. Terrific show like James Gunn apparently was talking about. I'm not sure if that rumor is true or not, or even other things in the future in regards to the DCU, like Clayface and whatnot. I'm very excited. This movie makes me excited for the future of DC, and I love that it can do that. So yeah. That's going to be it. I know I didn't talk about everything, but this is probably the longest review I've done thus far, which is why I'm not specifically titling it a quick review. Thank you for watching. Highly recommend watching Superman. See ya. Bye.